theme, we have various authors and topics that instill these values in us. Inclusion, to be included, to be provided equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded. Inclusion of minorities, marginalized sections of society, inclusion of the differently abled, inclusion of the privileged too. Willingness to accept books of each section included in this festival, the receptiveness of readers of Majha Nagpur to lend a ear to every marvelous author included. Readers are assured to be enthralled today and tomorrow with a fantastic array of most intriguing non-fiction books wound so seamlessly in astounding narratives by an inclusive lineup of incredible authors. Welcome, I, Tasneem Akolawala, welcome Nagpur readers to this fantastic next book, Translation of My Life with Dr. Ambedkar. This book is written by Savita Ambedkar, a tenacious fighter, an outstanding scholar, an iconic leader. Savita Ambedkar brings alive a different side of her husband, a man who wrote romantic letters, dictated what she should wear, whipped up delicious mutton curry, played the violin, and even tried his hand at sculpting. Author in focus with us is Mr. Nadeem Khan. Please welcome Mr. Nadeem Khan. Mr. Nadeem Khan has been a teacher of English since 1973. He was the founder director of the Western Regional Center of Institute of Mass Communication, an autonomous institute from 2011 to 2018. Nadeem Khan is a writer, translator, imbued with the fine sensitivity of recreating for readers the life and times of one of India's greatest sons. Nadeem Khan has beautifully translated over a dozen books, mainly from Marathi to English, including the epic Marathi novel Panipat by Vishwas Patil. He is the winner of Value of Words Awards for the award for Best Translated Book of the Year 2020. Mr. Nadeem Khan speaks prolifically on the art of good translation and writes extensively on the need of good translators. Moderator in focus for this book is Mr. Yogesh Maitreya. Yogesh Maitreya is a writer, poet, translator, and publisher. He is the founder and editor of Panther's Paw publication that is dedicated to publishing literature by Dalit Bahujan writers in English and in translation from other Indian languages. Mr. Yogesh Maitreya is the author of Flowers on Grave of Castle, published in 2019, a collection of short stories, a book of essays on music and memories, singing, thinking, anti-caste in 2021, and a book of prose poetry by Ambedkar in 2021. Please bring your hands together for our author, Mr. Nadeem Khan, and moderator, Mr. Maitreya.
Hello, everyone. So without taking much time, I would directly touch upon the subject of subject which we have today and on which a distinguished translator and teacher, Mr. Nadeem Khan, will shed light upon. And that is the book Baba Saheb, which is written by his second wife Savita Ambedkar. This book was published in Marathi in 1990s, and now it's in its fifth or sixth reprint. So I think the translation also, sir, provides new life to the old text. So that is also one of the I think the effect of translating a book. So without taking much time, coming to the subject of the book, I would like to ask you that as a translator, how important for you to translate this particular book, also being a non-Ambedkar scholar. So could you shed some light upon that?
Well, it's actually a no-brainer. And perhaps the most important person of the 20th century, Dr. Ambedkar. For India, in my opinion, he was the biggest intellectual of all in a company of great intellectuals. Yes, we had Gandhi, we had Nehru, we had Vallabhbhai Patel, we had Maulana Azad and all of these people. But after having read all of these people, it is in terms of sheer intellectual ferment, intellectual caliber, in my opinion, Dr. Ambedkar tops the list. He has been important for India, of course. He has actually written down the way India should behave post 1950. But other than that, he has also been a big time scholar of Buddhism. So therefore, he is of interest not merely to India, but to the rest of the world. Yeah. And for the autobiography of his wife. See, when the wife is writing an autobiography, you can actually treat it as the biography of her husband, Dr. Ambedkar. Such a tremendously important book. And it lay locked up in Marathi till 1990. And Marathi, by the way, is understood by just about 8% of the country, which, look at it from the other direction, 92% of Indian readers of English did not know what Dr. Ambedkar's wife had to say about her husband. So it actually came as a shock to me when in 2022, that is a good 32 years after this book was published into Marathi, and I got to know that it had not been translated into English. I could hardly believe my ears. I wondered how it happened that such an important book could have slipped from people's attention. And then the only answer that I had was that perhaps I was going to be the lucky one to translate it. So therefore, it was a total no-brainer. When I got to know that there was this book of Savita Ambedkar lying in Marathi, lying locked up in a language that only 8% understood, it needed no second thought for me to pounce at that book. And I finished off translating it in just about 3 or 4 months. And when the Penguin people heard about it, within 3 minutes, they were ready with their offer because they knew that they had a really hot item in their hands. So it had to happen. My only surprise is that it had to wait for 32 years to come out of Marathi.
So I think, like, sir, through your verse, like what you're explaining about to us about like why the weight you are saying that in translation there is always a weight. There are some books which like actually like there were no translation of those books. So my second question is that like in what way do you think that translating this book as a translator and going through the process of this, that how this book has contributed in creating a different or the fresh understanding of Ambedkar, because it is a narrative, it is a biography written by his second wife, which like a wife which is an intimate voice, because she had been with him for during most
9
crucial
years. Yes.
Yeah, and those were very crucial years.
Absolutely.
In Indian politics and in lot of ways. So
Yeah.
it is almost like a very intimate voice,
Yeah.
right? So how do you think, as a translator, when you're translating this book, that what kind of different understanding it has created of and about Ambedkar through her words?
Okay. Look, there are some very, very well-written biographies of Ambedkar available everywhere. In fact, one has very lately been added. Shashi Tharoor has come up with a biography, and Dr. Akash Singh Rathod, who delivered the keynote address, he is also coming up with a biography of Dr. Ambedkar in April. So there have been plenty of biographies. They have been all good ones, but I remember that we had a little conference, Columbia University. What is it called? Online conference. And there, Dr. Rathod, who is an accomplished scholar of Ambedkar, he had to say that from here onwards, whatever is written on Ambedkar from here onwards will never be able to ignore this book, because the aspects, the perspective, the dimensions, the facets that this book brings to light on Ambedkar, no other book possibly can or possibly could have. This is the wife talking, right? When you think of Dr. Ambedkar, you think of a very stern, a very forbidding man, you know, the Constitution in one hand and one finger raised up to the sky. So it is a very, very forbidding personality. And would you think of that person as somebody who had the sense of humor to crack a joke? That is the kind of thing that he does. Would you ever think that this person could whip up delicious mutton curry? Would you ever think that here was somebody who decided what kind of border his wife's sari should have? Now that is the kind of Ambedkar that you get to know about in this book. I promise you, for all that it is worth, you may fall for it, you may not fall for it, but the fact remains that the way that this book humanizes Dr. Ambedkar, no other book possibly can. You may belong to this side of the divide or that side, because Savita Ambedkar has been a very, very controversial person. There are people who detest her. In fact, I was told that there was a point when little jingles were created, which women, when they were grinding corn, you know, उसको मराठी में जाता कहते हैं, तो वो जब सिलबत्ते में अनाज पीसते हुए औरतें गाना गाती हैं, तो उन्होंने गाने तैयार करके रखे थे, जिसका कुल मिलाकर के मैसेज ये था कि ये बम्मन बाई ने ये हमारे डॉक्टर अंबेडकर की जान ली. So this was the kind of indoctrination that was done to blaspheme this woman, to demonize this woman. Now, I'm not getting into that picture at all. From what I could gather of this person from her writing, and generally, see, this is a case for the defense. And Dr. Savita Ambedkar wrote this book primarily because she wanted to present her side of the picture, that she is not the demon that she was made out to be, and that it was she who was responsible for having extended a very, very precious life during very precious times that the country was going through. So this book is clearly a case for the defense. So generally, you hear the case for the prosecution and then you read the case for the defense. It happened with me that I read the case for the defense first, and I was curious to know what the case of the prosecution was. So I have read a few books that actually maligned this woman, and for all that I am not a political person, for all that I am not a scholar, their arguments seemed very flat. Their arguments actually seemed very vicious and poisonous. You know, they were not talking, they were screaming, they were ranting. That this is what this woman has done. Hello, is there any proof? Is there any evidence? How did you arrive at this conclusion? No mention of that. Whereas this book, point by point, letter by letter, picture by picture, she tells you how she actually, if anything, she extended the life of Dr. Ambedkar and made his life comfortable for the 8 or 9 years for which they lived together. So this is what I have clearly gained from reading this book. Let me again underline that I am not I'm not a scholar. Ambedkar is one more addition that I can make to the list of which I'm not a scholar. Right. So, yeah, as a translator, as a decently curious person, I have read books, and this book does come out as an honest book. There may be some other people who may want to dissent, but let them read this book and dissent. No problem at all. But let this woman have her say, and not merely in Marathi, have it in English, so that even a French person, an English person, somebody in Singapore may want to know what the lady had to say.
No, sir, it's very interesting, and there are some points which you said on which I would respectfully would like to disagree, because there are rumors, there are things in politics, like after the Mahaparinirvana of Baba Sahib in 1956. So there was a race for the leadership, who can be the leader of the masses. And that is a common feeling in politics, right? In electoral politics. But now, when it comes to translation in India, translation is highly, the literature is highly a political act in translation, because, especially when it comes to translation, because when you translate something, we also, because translation is a double work. It's a rigorous work. It's a massive intellectual work, and like we can only agree with what Nadeem sir has done with his translation, because he has created for us in English language an account where we can see different aspects of the one particular discourse called Ambedkar. But there was Ramabai Ambedkar, who stayed, who was the first wife of Baba Sahib, who stayed with him during his struggles. And there were, I think, sir, like there are, if not less than that, there are at least a dozen of books about her, fictionalized account, and also the biographies of her, which were never translated. So what is, like the interest of the big publishers in publishing some accounts and not publishing others is also a highly political question. But then, if I go on talking about the politics of literature and the translation and the publication, that would be a different subject. But then, to proceed with what Nadeem sir has contributed in the fields of translation, I would really like to ask you. I'm myself as a translator, I'm trying in my small ways. I'm trying to learn from translation like Nadeem sir, like very distinguished translation, and we have been learning from people like him. So, sir, what is translation for you and transcreations basically? Because when we translate something, right, we don't only translate from one language to another, but we introduce that language to also the language in which we are translating, because some of the words we don't translate. And in this book also, some of the words from the Marathi you haven't translated, because you wanted to give the flavor of that context, that culture, that tradition, that basically voice of that language to the readers of English. So what is translation and transcreation for you?
Yeah, dekho, you have not thrown one question at me. You have thrown a bouquet of questions at me. Thank you very much. Pehli baat to ye, this business of bringing the word politics into everything. Perhaps it makes sense to a politically grounded person. I mean, you might say कि मैं अगर restaurant में जाता हूँ और डोसा लेता हूँ और इडली नहीं लेता, is there politics there?
It can be, sir.
I mean, yeah, whether you are taking rasam or whether you are taking sambar or whether you are taking this kind of rasam or that kind of rasam, there you can read politics into pretty much everything. The way I'm shaking my hands, perhaps there is politics there. I don't know. So, was there a political motivation behind my picking up this book? Well, you really have to stretch the definition of politics to accommodate me there. I thought it was an interesting book. I thought that here was a very, certainly a noteworthy person who has written about 100 times more than noteworthy person who was her husband. And I thought that it needed to be published. Then I'll talk to you about Ramabai. Now, look, again, I need to repeat this. I have to do it with the caveat that I don't know much about Ramabai. But Ramabai, to my understanding, was just any good housewife of those times. Okay? So, personally, that she lived with him, of course she had to live with him. He was her husband. Did she care for him? Of course she cared for him, because every wife cared for the husband. Did she suffer all the sufferings that her husband underwent? Of course she did. So what was new? Do you think that there is anything strikingly new about what Ramabai did as the wife of Dr. Ambedkar? To my mind, I don't think she was anything different from any housewife of that period. Okay, perhaps I'm making a political statement, but anyway, this morning
That's what
I
I'm
was
saying.
cajoled by people to say, what was that? Love to be hated. Right. So perhaps I'm making an effort at wanting to be loved. To what was that? Yeah. To love, having people hate you. Yeah. All right. So please hate me for it. But I do believe that the elevation, the deification of Ramabai had an altogether political motive. Okay, I'm talking as pretty much an ignoramus, but I want to be hated. So I think that Ramabai she was good. She was a top class wife, but wives during those periods, if you threw a stone randomly, you would hit a top class wife. Okay, so in my opinion, Ramabai was a good wife. She did sacrifice for her husband, but show me one single wife who didn't do it. Or perhaps you may be able to show me two, but out of 100, how many? Not many. Okay. Meanwhile, this woman did not have to do all that she did, right? She took that leap across the caste divide, which at that point of time was a very, very important thing to do. It just happens that Savita came from a family that was known for making these leaps. Out of the 6 or 7 siblings, every one of them married outside their caste. Right. So she was perhaps trained, in the circumstances in which she grew. But other than that, imagine here is a lady who's not altogether a spring chicken. She was no 20-year-old girl. She was a good 32, 33, 34, whatever the age was. But put yourself in her shoes. She is a decently doing doctor, and she decides that here is this man suffering from all kinds of ailments. He was a complete hospital by himself for the number of ailments that he carried inside himself. Yeah. He had neuritis, and he had blood pressure, and he all kinds of things. And here was a person who was tremendously important for that period of time. He was doing a tremendously important job. And this woman decides to devote herself to this man, knowing the kinds of opinions that are going to be thrown upon her. So to my mind, between Ramabai and between Savita Ambedkar is outstanding, because she did something that women of those times didn't do. Yeah. So hold, yaar. You threw a bouquet of questions at me. I have answered only one of them. Now, the other thing that you were talking about was transcreation, translating from one language into another language. Always, that is something lost in translation, without a doubt. Something much is lost. I would think that even the original act of writing in your own language is also a translation of ephemeral thoughts, insubstantial thoughts. You translate them into some language or the other. And is something lost? Without a doubt, something is lost. If thoughts were to be circulated, and if the translation, written form, were to be circulated, there would definitely be a noticeable loss in the written form. And when you translate from one language into another language, there is again a loss. if it happens to be a language of the same culture, like for instance, if Marathi were to be translated into Hindi, the loss would be a little less. But when it is translated into a language that doesn't even belong to this culture, then the loss is clearly heavier.
Exactly. I mean, it's very apparent, sir, because
यार मेरा bouquet.
we also have like the time limit, so like yeah, we perhaps can
Okay.
talk about it
Okay.
also of the
Your call.
dice to if because I'm curious when I was reading this book, there is no mention of C.B. Khairmode's biography of Baba Saheb, which spans across 3,500 pages. So to know more about Ambedkar's personal life, his life with Ramabai, his life with Sabita Ambedkar, one has to invest a time to read those 3,500 pages because,
Correct.
as I understand, being a translator from Marathi to English, also publishing books in English, English I feel is a language in this country is a language of, like conveniently ignorant people. I mean, they want to know something, they don't want to know other things. So
No,
this
I
is
take serious objection to what you've said.
exactly.
but
You
go
can
on.
take objection, but like we can
Yeah, you
we can
also love
discuss
to be
this
hated.
objection.
Fine.
Like so sir, like I mean, you have like basically that is what you said that if the translation is being done from these Indian languages to the language which is outside of India, the loss is massive, right? I mean,
No, hold. It need not be massive. Is there loss? Yes. Is there massive loss? Certainly it is not more massive than not being there at all.
exactly. So we are basically, so translation is a kind of a contribution, right?
Of course.
It is a contribution which would lead to, basically like make the language more holistic. So the last question to you, I think we have less time, and they have also shown us the board. So like,
No, we've got at least another 15 minutes for talking.
So what do you think about a discourse called Ambedkar after you done translation of this book? Because this is not something. This is not that a scholar is writing this book. This is not something an activist is writing or a poet is writing. This is something essentially his second wife is writing, and also this is perhaps the only book she had written. So,
Okay.
what do you think of Ambedkar as a discourse after you done translating this book in English?
Look, in the first place, it is a very intimate book. Here is this wife basically talking about her husband. So, if she were to not touch upon the politics of Dr. Ambedkar's life, even that would have been okay with me. For her not to mention Khairmode is no loss at all to me, because I'm really interested in what she has to say about her very, very illustrious is actually a euphemism to use for a person like Dr. Ambedkar. But I would not be interested in her telling me किसने किसने biography लिखा है. लिखा होगा यार, तुमको क्या बात करना है वो करो. वो ये लेडी ने मुझे लगता है भरपूर किया है. और जाहिर है कि ऑटोबायोग्राफीज का ये प्रॉब्लम रहता है, यू कैनॉट टेक देम एज द अल्टीमेट ट्रूथ, बिकॉज इट इज ऑलवेज अ पर्सपेक्टिव. राइटिंग एन ऑटोबायोग्राफी इज एन एक्सट्रीमली डिफिकल्ट थिंग, एंड एज अ record of history, it always needs to be taken with a pinch of salt all the time. But if you are asking me whether I got to be better informed about Dr. Ambedkar after having read this book, most certainly yes. I mean, if that was your question.
That was my question,
Yeah.
basically. So yeah,
Yeah.
and also the writing of this book is very curious as a process, because when she had written, like Mr. Surwade was also, he worked closely with her in terms of like she was narrating, he was taking the notes and all.
Right.
Basically, like this is like you mentioned that this book has contributed in understanding Ambedkar in a different aspect, because it is coming from a very intimate these things. And also like I mean, I had one more question. I thought like we don't have a time, but
We have time.
yeah, I mean.
Bully.
So do you, again, the thing on which we had a little disagreement, translation as a politics. I mean, see, I need to make one thing clear when you say like everything is political because we do something, we don't do another thing because we make choice.
Sure.
Our choices are guided by
Okay,
everything we bring together or everything we carry from the past to the present. So these are the choices. So what do you think about, because you have also translated Panipat, you have also translated other works, and
Yes.
these are because, you know, like when I was reading about the history of translation in the world and the publisher, so there is a writer, there is a publisher, a writer and translator called Roberto Colasso. He had written a book about art of publishing.
Okay.
So he said that each book you publish, you don't publish, like big publisher publish anything and everything.
True.
So they publish two enemies together also because they want to
Yeah,
make
so
money.
that is
That's okay.
publication
So,
politics.
so as a literature, you know, like your book, your translation, each book you publish, each book you translate, it is a chain to the whole, right?
Okay.
It is a step towards something,
Okay.
right? It is in continuation of your scholarship. So I want to know, like, I would like to ask you, like, how, like, what this book has contributed in you as a translator.
In me. Okay.
Yeah, as a translator.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Now, in terms of pure, in translation terms, this was not a difficult book to translate. Whatever she had to say, she was not leaping across cultures. She was not leaping across language barriers. And whatever she had to say in Marathi, I could quite easily say in English without letting the essence move away. What I did do was that the original Marathi book looked like it was written for closed circulation. So there was a lot of discontinuity. So therefore, the total readership experience for me, for the Marathi book, was that of discontinuity. And in the interest of increasing the readership quotient of my English book, I did a little bit of editing here and there. I knocked out something like 14,000 words because they were repeating the same thing, and it can, well, you know, for a psychologist, it may hold a lot of interest if a certain thing has been repeated 5 times, oh, why? But to an ordinary reader, I'm quite sure that he would be happy with 2. So this is what I did. I knocked out a lot of words. I brought in some arrangements. Other than that, I don't think this translation required any effort, but I can give you samples of where translation is really not merely translation, but transcreation. If my audience will allow me, and if you will permit me, I'll talk about another book where the narrator is a Marathi person, right? The narrator of the book. And he is in conversation with a woman who speaks only the Gondi language. Now, obviously, when a Marathi writer gets somebody to talk in English, he's clearly filling out a profile. When he gets that person to talk in Hindi, he could as well have made him talk in Marathi, but he's done it in Hindi because he wants to add a facet to that character's personality. So here is this person. She is a Gondi woman in the Naxal infested area of Gadchiroli. If I have your permission, it took me a lot of effort to transcreate the image of that woman who was talking in very broken Hindi to the narrator, who was himself a Marathi-speaking person. Let me read that out to you, if I can locate it in quick time, because time is of the essence. Hello, open up. Yeah, you've opened up. Thank you. All right, here it comes. The name of this Gondi woman is Latakka. And I have translated whatever she had to say in that novel. It's a novel called Pan, Pani, Ni, Pravaha. Leaf, water, and flow. So here it goes. This is Latakka talking. How you write my story now, huh? I only know Gondi. You only know Marathi. My Hindi, not good. Your Hindi, not good also. So how we do? I only tell you and you only, I from that village, my man also from that village. My name, Latakka. I see this jeep, this building, first time. There in village, when sound of jeep come there, no, that time police come too. So, police come, jeep come, mean police come. It like this now. Look, government say make road for progress. But why we let road come in our village? No let. Jeep will come on road. Jeep mean police. So you want to make road for police. How this will do, Dada? Now you tell me, this will do? To my brother, this police, this big rope. So they hang my brother by this big rope, put him backside of jeep on ground and run jeep fast. So sometime tree, sometime big stone. So like this, they kill my brother. He died there like this. So, why we want road come? Now, 7 years I keep in jail. Why? My man also keep in jail. So many people keep in jail. Why? We not return back to village. People ask, why you help Dada people? See, they help to us. So for that reason, we help to them. Who help us in good time, what we do with them? Who help us in bad time, we can do help them, no? If you do help to us in bad time, I can take you as a brother, no? So, who help in good time, we cannot remember them also. Dada people come to our village. I see them from child time, then going with them, eating, they eating with us, then telling, Didi people telling, you woman people also stand by side of man. Man people go out and talk to other woman. Why you no talk to other man? Why like that? Didi people say like this. Then every people think, then we will support them. Then Dada people tell us to pick up gun, so we can have to pick up, no? If front people have gun, we also can have gun. If Dada people give us gun, how it is bad? No anything bad in this. Now, if ambush happens, so then kill some police people. Who will fire first bullet, he live. Who will no fire, he die. It happens like this.
So, sir, this is a very fine example of transcreation, I think, right?
You can
So,
call it
I mean,
that.
matching with the voice of the person who had written or spoken it. So, I think, yeah, I mean, it was very, very interesting. So, now I would like to open this dice for questions. If you have some questions to Nadeem sir, you can start asking, so we can wrap this in next 10 minutes. So if you have any question, you can start shooting at.
Nagpur audience, please begin with your questions.
Hello. Sir, my question is regarding while transcreation.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir. My question is while a transcreation is happening,
Yeah.
there is a lot of influence from our childhood.
Of course.
If a person grows in the city, he will have the influence from the just now you have explained the paragraph,
Okay.
and he will have the influence like whatever the he has seen in the movies of
Okay.
the Gadchiroli people and all Naxalites people. He
Okay.
will create an image in our mind,
Okay.
and if there is a village person, he will create another.
Okay.
If the city persons become an author, he will describe in one way. And
Okay.
if a village person become an author and describes it, it will be the another one.
Okay.
So when from the reader's perspective, what will be the gain from two different perspective, and how can we not dominate one another?
Look, so while writing is a process of creation, reading is equally a creative process. I mean, you can't go there as a passive soak. Right, you're not merely soaking, you're responding from your own set of experiences. You have talked about writers coming from the village or from the urban setting. You can equally talk about readers coming from this set or that set. The whole thing is that if you are an open enough reader, if you have the right sensibilities, if you can organize your head and, press the right buttons, you will be receiving a certain piece of writing, and if the writing is well done, all those little flavors of the urban or of the rural side will come floating at you. And if you are an alert enough reader, a sensible enough, a sensitive enough reader, I suppose you will be gaining every little time that you soak, whether it is coming from why just urban and rural. You can talk about the gender divide. It may be an LGBT person writing, that person may be writing from his own sensibilities, but for that, for you to appreciate the literature in it, you need to you have to correct the coordinates in your own head, right, to be able to get the best that you can out of the effort that has been made. I don't know whether I have answered your question.
Can we, sorry, can we move to the next question?
No, let him finish. बोलिए ना, पूछिए ना. हाँ, या. भाई देखो, ऐसा है कि आप जितना पढ़ेंगे उतना आपका बायस कम होता जाएगा. तो बायस जो है वो किताब से नहीं आ रहा है, आपकी खोपड़ी में पहले से बायस कहीं और किसी और वजह से आ चुका है. एंड इफ यू वांट टू रियली गेन, यू नीड टू सस्पेंड योर बायस एंड रीड with as open a mind as possible. I agree that it is never possible for you to come with a complete lack of bias. You will bring your biases, but if you are ready to learn, if you are ready to gain from the experiences of others, if you keep getting your biases trip you on the way, then I don't think anybody can help you. The bias needs to be settled first inside you as a reader. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Good afternoon, sir. So I want to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
What is the one word you would describe to the lady that you have so Dr. Savita Ambedkar? If you want to give the one word to describe her, what it would be?
No, I don't know whether I want to describe her by one word. Why should I?
So okay.
No, she's far more than a single word can contain.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to your question.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And second question is, if you want us to, if you want to give the 3 takeaways from the translation that you have done.
Say it again, please.
If you want
A few takeaways
from the book,
Yeah.
that you would just summarize and tell us that what is the 3 takeaways that you can take from this book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look. I mean, I have always been against this deification of human beings, right? Gandhi has been deified. Ambedkar has been deified. We in India seem to specialize in deifying great men. And I believe that when you deify them, you take away their humanity. You do not, you do not connect with them as you should connect with a human being. You can't connect with a god, for heaven's sake. I mean, for heaven's sake is a very intended pun. But this book truly humanizes Dr. Ambedkar. So I see Dr. Ambedkar as a flesh and blood human being, and therefore I understand his trials and tribulations with a great deal more of affinity than I would to a metal statue that stands at every square. That's what I have gained from this book.
Thank you so much.
I think we have 5 minutes more.
नहीं ना यार 15 मिनट अरे 2 बजे आपने कहा था ना
Sir, it was a fantastic session by you.
प्लीज टेल मी हमारा टाइम 2 बजे तक है या नहीं है
No, I need time to let the other author in also.
Yeah.
So we need to wind up.
तो okay anyway
One more question we can. Yes, sure, sir.
So, as a translator,
yeah
do you think it is better to know more about the subject, or could it be a more unbiased translation if you know a little less about the subject, just maybe a bit?
Yeah, that is a very tricky question. So there are two loyalties that I believe that a translator owes. One loyalty is to the original source, right? So if you are being completely and unabashedly loyal to the original source, then I suppose you need to keep all your other inputs aside. But as a translator, I'm also loyal to the readership. Yeah, and if I believe that the original has missed out on a few tricks and I can add those tricks without at all seriously damaging the second message, then I think that I should also indulge my readers. This is what I have done with this book. As I said that the Marathi reader, as a Marathi reader, I got up with a certain feeling about the book, and I made sure that the English reader did not get up with that same feeling. I thought I did it a little bit of polish without at all hurting the central message. Thank you.
So, do we can take one more question, can we? Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, whom do you think played an important role in Ambedkar's life, Savita or Ramabai?
देखिए मैम, मैंने आपसे बताया कि मैं स्कॉलर नहीं हूं, ठीक है? जितना मैं जानता हूं उतना मैं यहाँ पे बखान नहीं कर सकता, मेरी कोई औकात ही नहीं है. तो मैं यहाँ पे जो बैठा हूं, इस किताब का अनुवादक रहने के नाते बैठा हूं.
And also, sir,
एक
like,
मिनट, I think आप जब सुनने के लिए तैयार हैं तब मुझसे कहिए. Are you ready? Right. तो इस आप जो मुझसे सवाल कर रही हैं, रमाबाई ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हैं या सविता अंबेडकर इंपॉर्टेंट हैं, एज अ ट्रांसलेटर मुझे इसके बारे में कुछ कहना ही नहीं है. एज एन अंबेडकर स्कॉलर आई एम नॉट देयर, बट एज अ जनरल, अ रीजनेबली अलर्ट रीडर, आई वुड बिलीव दैट सविता अंबेडकर इज द मोर important factor in Dr. Ambedkar, the more unusual factor. Ramabai was just about as important as any wife of that period was to her husband. That's what.
also, did you read this book? Okay. So I think
Question, please.
I think like we can take another question from somebody else, because if somebody has, they should also get an opportunity to ask the questions. Do you have some more questions?
May I ask?
Due
this
to
was-
paucity of time,
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
for further queries, our favorite translator, Mr. Nadeem Khan, will be available in the lawns.
Yeah.
And it was an absolutely fantastic session, dynamic, unabashed responses, and equally unabashed questions by our moderator here. The English translation by Nadeem Khan unearths a much valuable, worthy of being revised account of the greatest figures of 20th century. Nagpur readers, please bring your hands together for Mr. Nadeem Khan and our moderator.
Thank you very much.
Now I shall request our moderator to please present a token of appreciation to the author. The gift is a handmade painting that has been personalized for the author. We are proud to be associated with such talent at Alag Angle Community. The painting has been made by Tejas Jaiswal.
ये तस्वीर आप मुझे भेजेंगे?
Nagpur readers,
Am I getting
we
a copy of this?
should, sure sir, sure. Nagpur readers, we are surely big fans of Ambedkar sir to skip our lunch hour and be here with Nadeem sir. Thank you so much on behalf of Nagpur readers. Thank you everybody. Have a good day.